That is a picture of my first encounter with a concentration of refugees in Calais called the Jungle. I first went there in October 2015. It was home to 4,000 people. And already you can see that there were businesses forming. These were run by refugees. They were supplying things that the refugees living in the camp needed: toiletries, clothes, shoes. Mostly they opened in the evening once the volunteers had left, because mostly they were selling things that they had been given by the volunteers who went into the camp during the day. And that was the way in which they made themselves a little bit of a living in the camp. Over the time that I was visiting for a whole year, from October 2015 to 2016, the population of the camp grew to 10,000 people. And the reason for that is that Calais has, for the last probably 35 to 40 years, been a place where displaced people gather because they have made their way through mainland Europe and they want to get to the UK. Many of them also want to get to Northern Europe, so Germany and Scandinavia, and Calais is a stopping off point for that. Calais became particularly important on the route for displaced people when the Channel Tunnel opened. The Channel Tunnel is a rail tunnel link between mainland Europe, Calais, and the UK. And therefore, the tunnel became a means by which people could gain access to the United Kingdom from the French mainland. And this particular shop, pictured on the screen, is about 2 miles from the ferry port and about 4 miles from the tunnel entrance. So it's very strategically located for those who are seeking to get to the UK. Now, we went because I wanted to find out what was going on, and we had a caravan that we wanted to give to a refugee family, and this is the caravan that we took on our following visit. That is somebody getting into the caravan who became a really good friend of mine, still is a good friend of mine, lives just the other side of the river from me now. And it was in that caravan that the organization that we founded, called Peaceful Borders, was actually born. Juliet Kilpin, another Baptist minister, and I were talking about what we could do. And as well as providing somewhere for a single refugee to live, the caravan became a base for the things that we were doing, which were largely to do with community development within the camp. The jungle was demolished and all the refugees cleared from it in October 2016. But that did not mean that the refugee population dwindled to nothing. What it meant was that there was not a single place where they were all gathered. So the French authorities dispersed them across France in the autumn of 2016. By the winter of 2016, quite a lot of them had come back and were forming other little jungles around Calais, this being one of them. They were living in conditions like this. So if you went to Calais today and you knew where to go, you would find groups of mainly men, men from North Africa, the Middle East, Sub-Saharan Africa, Sudan, Somalia, Eritrea, Ethiopia. You would find groups of men like this, keeping warm around a fire, cooking food that they had been given by one of the volunteer organizations. But those people are still very much in evidence in the camp, in the city, and they gather in groups of between 15 and 30. They're pretty harassed by the French authorities. So if they pitch a camp, very often the French will come and clear that camp. They will destroy everything that the refugees have. They will often take their shoes. So one of the key needs that displaced people have in the city of Calais is shoes. So there's an organization called Care for Calais that fundraises to supply shoes to a lot of the displaced people. I'm just going to stop this so I can get to the place where I want to get to. I just want to show you the pictures of my friends. The guy in the middle in the African shirt is Samir. He was the person who lived in the caravan that we took over in November 2016. He's standing next to Ali on his left, and Mohammed on the far right, and Haile in between them. These guys were community leaders within the camp in 2015-16. They now all live in the UK. They've all claimed and successfully achieved asylum status in the UK. And Ali and Samir work for Peaceful Borders with us. We employ them 2 days a week to work in refugee welcome. And this picture was taken in my lounge about 3 years ago when we had a reunion. We decided to get together for a couple of days and just talk about what we had learned in the camp. And one of the things that we had learned in the camp was that there was a need for a base for both volunteers, but particularly for very vulnerable refugees. And that base was set up by this guy called Brother Johannes. He's a Belgian Benedictine monk. And it became a home for mainly Eritrean people to begin with after the camp had closed. Picture here is lots of our original Eritrean residents, and Sister Joelle, who is French, retired nun. I didn't realize nuns retired, but she kind of came back from Africa, having worked a lot in Somalia, and therefore was very concerned to help displaced African people particularly. So she's there with this group of people. The house was named after an Eastern Orthodox nun called Maria Skobtsova, who worked in Paris in the 1930s, and eventually died in Ravensbrück because she was caught by the Germans in Paris, where she was working with displaced people, particularly Jewish people, forging passports for them so they could get out of France into Spain and to safety. She was known as the trash can nun because she smuggled children out of the football stadium in the center of Paris in trash cans. And loads and loads of Jewish children owe their lives to Mother Maria. And so we named the house after her because that's pretty much the ministry that we're involved in. Although I did say to Johannes one day that we would be really in the spirit of Mother Maria if he and I were sitting in the basement forging travel documents. We haven't gone that far yet, but you never know. Johannes is now also living in the UK. The house is run by a number of volunteers, and these are just a couple of pictures of what life in the house looks like. The house is really just an ordinary Calais suburban terraced house. It's manifestly unsuitable for a refugee project with probably 20 to 30 residents at any one time. But somehow it works. And as you can see, there's always food, there's always laughter, There's always people cooking something in the kitchen. There's always people playing games, eating food. That's a pretty common sight. There are volunteers. These are the volunteers doing the washing up, I think, at one point. 2 volunteers, 2 residents there. Just at the back of the house, there's a little kind of courtyard. It looks a bit different to this. I took this photo a couple of years ago. Somebody using a load of pallets has built at the back a better seating arrangement. So there's a bit more seating outside the house. But at the same time as I took this photo, I also took these photos. This is a typical street near where the jungle used to be. And what is happening is that the authorities are clearing the woodland, and then they're putting up these fairly difficult to climb fences. And people gather alongside the fences and the walls in order to receive support. So all the way around Calais, there are these groups of people still who are living, sleeping in the woods, coming out to get help and support from the various organizations, pitching tents along the wall. The other side of that wall is the motorway, and lighting fires and boiling up kettles and serving tea to anybody who drifts along and wants a conversation. I think Joseph talked about Americans not being very good at hospitality. Neither are the British, but I have learned what it means to offer hospitality as I have sat round one of these fires, which I have done on countless occasions over the last 5 years. I have learned hospitality from people who have absolutely nothing. They share their nothing with somebody who has everything, and they make me feel poor and them look rich. And it's just an extraordinary place to be, and an extraordinary community of people to be mixing with. Many of the displaced people are Christian believers. So this became an Eritrean chapel. The French play a game called pétanque, which involves throwing weighted balls down the track at a smaller ball, and the person who gets their ball nearest wins. And this is a pétanque court that had been abandoned, and it became a shrine for a small Eritrean community that lived in the woods, and they would come out and pray. So you had to, if you wanted to go into the pétanque court, you had to take your shoes off and go in and pray, even in a wet December. But what we saw was not just extraordinary hospitality, but also incredible faith and a confidence that God was going to get people to the UK and to safety and a place where they would be able to learn. So here is Samir. He set up an organization within Peaceful Borders called Hope Towns. And this was the opening afternoon of Hope Towns, which exists to welcome groups of refugee people, all of whom, all these people had at one point been in northern France. And many of them we met first in northern France. And they came, and Hope Towns offers English language, a bit of low-level support and advice on housing and that kind of stuff. So Joseph and Rachel have been invited to be part of this community. They will also be eating meals around this table. Even if we have a different house, this table will go with us, because this is the table that has been the table of hospitality for so many people over the last 5 years, that we couldn't leave it. It would have to come with us to wherever Maria Skobtsova House went to. And it would always be a table that was surrounded by laughter and safety and security and fun and acceptance and welcome, and about 15 different languages all being spoken at once. it's a great place, and we're really looking forward to Joseph and Rachel coming and working alongside us in this amazing house.